If you've ever sailed on a cruise ship, then you know that just like any other vacation, the idea is to escape reality. But whether you want to hear it or not, escape is impossible, no matter how many pina coladas you drink. From accidents to crime, things happen on board cruise ships, even murder. So approximately 30 million people cruise worldwide each year, and within that 30 million, about 200 deaths occur. So the number is not that big. However, one thing that you could never imagine as far as the cause of death on board a cruise ship would be murder. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jay and welcome to The Ship Life. So as someone that's worked for cruise lines such as Carnival and NCL, I can tell you I've seen and heard a lot of crazy and horrific things that have taken place on board cruise ships. But the stories that I'm going to talk about today even made my skin crawl a little bit. Today we're going to dive into the dark side of cruising and talk about 5 murders that happened on board cruise ships. Real quick before we start, I do want to give my sincere condolences to the loved ones of the victims that we'll be talking about in today's video. This video is also in no way, shape, or form a full representation of what cruising actually is. Also, this video is for educational purposes only. So for number 1, we have Tamara Lorraine Tucker, the birthday nightmare. So back in 2018, Tamara decided to take a cruise with her longtime boyfriend, Eric Duane Newman, for her 50th birthday on board the Carnival Elation. So the Kansas couple would be sailing out of Jacksonville, Florida on board the Carnival Elation on January 18, 2018, and they would be taking a quick trip over to the Caribbean. But unfortunately, Tamara would never make it over there because just before midnight, the couple got into a big argument that was overheard by a lot of the other passengers on board just outside of their 13th deck cabin. Around 12:15 a.m., the fight continued inside the cabin and unfortunately escalating. Eric ended up strangling Tamara and then tossing her off the balcony where she fell to her death, dying of blunt force trauma. After the tragic incident, Eric did end up pleading guilty to second-degree murder with malice aforethought and was sentenced to 12 years in prison, 5 years of probation, and ordered to pay $8,500 in restitution to Tamara's family. Number 2, Adriana Morales, the crew member tragedy. So back on April 20th, 2017, 23-year-old Adriana from Puebla, Mexico, was working on board Royal Caribbean's Navigator of the Seas. While the ship was docked at the port of Bonaire, Adriana decided to get off and go pick up a souvenir. Unfortunately, she would never return. However, after Navigator of the Seas left, it wouldn't be discovered until later on that evening that she was not on board. In the coming days, the police and eventually the FBI would get involved in the search for Adriana. A few days later, CCTV footage over in Bonaire would capture Adriana with an unidentified man. So that's where they went back to look. They were searching house after house, and then eventually they stumbled upon a house where they found a lifeless body with tattoos that were similar to that of Adriana. Raisley Sambo would be the man eventually charged with the killing of Adriana Morales. Apparently he killed her because she refused his sexual advances, so he stabbed her multiple times with a knife, put her in a wheelbarrow, and just decided to bury her. That way he can get rid of all the evidence. Now, I have to warn you, the details are extremely graphic. I'm not going to talk about them here on YouTube, but you can just look up the name and all of it's right there available. Now, when it came to the prosecution of Sambo, the prosecutor wanted to get him with 22 years and $21,000 worth of restitution to the family. But instead, Sambo ended up getting 17 years and $1,100 of restitution to the family. Now, I'm not sure exactly why that verdict was made, why there wasn't more money involved, but who knows at this point. Anyway, guys, Royal Caribbean did eventually end up putting out a statement just kind of warning everybody, especially the crew, that they should just be a little bit more cautious and safe when they are traveling in these ports of call because you never know what could happen. Number 3, Lonnie Calkins almost got away with it. So back in 2006, Lonnie Calkins was an attorney, and his ex-wife was a former paralegal that had to stop practice due to severe arthritis. The couple divorced in 2002, but decided to still live together after the divorce due to monetary reasons and for the fact that they couldn't decide how they were going to divide up all the assets. Now, you had Lonnie that came around and he wanted Mickey to sell the house, that way they could divide up the money, but she refused. However, Lonnie kept pushing the issue over and over and over again, and eventually, after Mickey kept refusing, he decided to drop it all together. But that was because he was coming up with a very evil plan. Ronnie began rewriting wills for both him and his ex-wife Mickey, while at the same time planning a cruise for the both of them, out of all things. Now, this was strange for Lonnie because he was known to be a person that wasn't really big on vacations. However, even before all of this, he did talk to his best friend, who was a private investigator, and started asking him about the cameras and security on board cruise ships. Now, after booking a balcony cabin on board the Island Escape cruise ship, the couple traveled all the way from LA over to Spain, which again is a little strange because Lonnie was not somebody that was particularly too fond of traveling, let alone cruising. Now, unfortunately, this led up to the morning of May 26, 2006. Lonnie ended up strangling Mickey to death and just tossing her over the balcony, making it appear as if she just fell and this was some type of mishap or accident that took place. So 36 hours after the horrific incident, Mickey's body was discovered floating in the middle of the ocean by crew members. An autopsy was later conducted and it was revealed that foul play was involved. After a very long drawn-out investigation, it was discovered that Lonnie did indeed kill Mickey. Now, this man wanted the money, he wanted the house, and he wanted to get rid of a woman that was disabled and apparently had some mental problems as well. But instead, in 2020, he was convicted and received life in prison. Number 4, Salvatore Sam Anello, The Window. So back on July 7, 2019, Sam, as he was often referred to as, was docked in San Juan, Puerto Rico while sailing on board Royal Caribbean's Freedom of the Seas with his granddaughter, Chloe Wiegand. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard this horrible story because it was extremely big news back on the tail end of 2019 and 2020. So the way it all went down, later on that evening, both Chloe Wiegand and her grandfather were on board Freedom of the Seas, and Sam Anello decided to hold Chloe over a row of windows. Now, unfortunately, Chloe ended up dropping 115 feet to her death. Sam claimed that he had no idea that the window was open. Now keep in mind though, this is also by a children's area, which we'll talk about in a minute. So this unfortunate situation did end up being a very long and drawn out investigation and court case that lasted years. It was later revealed that Sam in fact did know that the window was open. This was proven by CCTV footage provided by Royal Caribbean that he was actually leaning outside of the window. Now he did end up eventually pleading guilty and was sentenced to 3 years of probation. Now just looking at this case in particular, you gotta understand this is a big family situation. Maybe the family was okay with the verdict because they wanted to get it all over with. There's grandfathers involved, there's grandchildren involved. It's just a horrible situation. So I'm not faulting them at that. The question that a lot of people are asking is, was justice actually served at the end of the day when you look at it from a general scale? But they also talk about the fact that Royal Caribbean is at fault. This is something that was controversially talked about between a lot of people, whether it be passengers, crew, whoever. But at the end of the day, though, too, you really got to take into consideration that cruise lines do try to be as safe as possible when it comes to certain areas. Now, was a mistake made? Possibly, because remember, this is in a children's area, or at least nearby. Maybe in the future, Royal Caribbean will be a little bit safer as far as which windows are open and where it actually is taking place. Number 5, Kenneth Manzanares, the divorce. So back in 2017, Kenneth Manzanares and his wife, Christy Manzanares, were sailing on board the Emerald Princess for a family trip over to Alaska. One night during the cruise, Christy and Kenneth got into a big argument in front of people that were also in the room with them. Christy said that she wanted a divorce and she wanted Kenneth to get off in Juneau, Alaska and never return. So at that point in time, Kenneth asked everybody to leave the room. He then locked the door and began hitting Christy, eventually beating her to death. Now, when all this was said and done, Kenneth tried to defend everything that happened by saying he had an undiagnosed brain injury and mood disorder, but that was not going to fly in court. He was eventually convicted and charged with second-degree murder and was given 30 years in prison. Now, fast forward to where we are currently. In a shocking turn of events, on July 16, 2021, while Kenneth was sitting in an Alaskan prison, somehow he ended up dying. Now, apparently there was no foul play involved and COVID was not involved either, so nobody really knows exactly what happened to Kenneth. They are still waiting to do an autopsy and an investigation as well. So while these stories are of course extremely unfortunate, I do believe this is a big reminder to all of you out there that no matter where you are, even if you're on a vacation, you're trying to just kind of unwind and step away from reality for a little bit, you still have to be cautious when you are out there doing these things because reality doesn't take any breaks. Now, do I believe that everybody out there is going to get murdered by their wife or their husband or some unfortunate accident? No, but all I'm saying is you got to be careful. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer or anything like that. I do believe that you guys should always enjoy, but just don't throw all caution to the wind because things like accidents do happen. Murder would probably be the less likely one. So I'm saying as far as something happening, whether it be like a jet ski accident, falling off a cruise ship, which I hope nobody actually does, and I do believe the cruise lines do a great job at providing the safety guidance for everybody so that things like that don't happen, you still got to remember to think a little bit when you are traveling on board these ships and just not necessarily leave your brain in the car. Anyway, guys, we're going to leave it right here. If you want a part 2, I don't know if you guys like this one, let me know in the comment section below, of course. Let me know what you feel about how you felt about all of this. If you happen to be there on any of one of these ships or you heard about these stories, let's talk about it in the comment section. I hope you all are doing well. Please make sure you like this video on your way out. Subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. Take it easy.